How is everybody doing tonight? How is everybody doing tonight? Welcome, guys. Welcome, 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 guys. Come on in, come on in, come on in, come on in. Welcome, guys. Welcome, 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 welcome. No music tonight. No music tonight. Wow. Good night, guys. Good night, good night. Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's everybody doing? How is everybody doing? Blessings to everybody, blessings to everybody, blessings to everybody. Yes, guys, yes, guys. We are on, we are on. Well, I am on tonight. I am on tonight, I am on tonight. How's everybody doing? Good night. Ah. Yes, 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 yes. Welcome everybody, welcome everybody. You know, I'm grateful to be here tonight. I first want to say welcome to our channel when two become one. You know, tonight I'll be rocking it tonight by myself. Yes, wifey, you know, excuse wifey for not being here tonight. You know, it's been a, should I say, an eventful week. You know, it's been an eventful week where, you know, there's a lot been going on. You know, we're trying to prepare for, you know, the upcoming, you know, school term. And so, you know, we've been busy. You know, please forgive us for not being on so frequently as we, you know, used to. And again, you know, it's the, you know, it's a summer. We're going down to the end of summer break, and so you know, we're kind of, you know, trying to get a lot of things done when it comes to, you know, the kids, and you know, just trying to wheel ourselves back into, you know, that mode of work and work and work. So yes, guys, welcome one more time to our channel when two become one. You know, I am the founder of this channel, where I co-host with my wife. I'm a marriage and relationship speaker, and you know, a first time author. You know, I came out, you know, talking about my book lately. I don't know if anybody got it yet. What's good? Hey, Lusa, Luca. Forgive me if I didn't pronounce your name, pronounce your name well, but blessings to you, blessings to you, blessings to you. Yes, I'm the founder of this channel, you know, when two become one, where I co-host with my wife. You know, she's a, you know, trauma coach as well. Well, I do a little trauma, but you know, she's called the trauma boss. She's not here tonight. God bless you too. God bless you too. You know, she's not here tonight. You know, please forgive her for not being here tonight. And so I have to serve by myself. You know, it's funny because since we've started this channel, well, she has served, you know, on her own before, a few times, but this is my first time, guys. So, you know, it's kind of weirdish, you know, doing it by myself. But big up, big up, big up, big up, big up. You know, tonight's topic, you know, I just want to dive right in. It's a topic that I feel like, you know, I always say it's imperative. It's very important that, you know, I try to get into this topic. You know, should it have been, you know, something that we spoke about in the early part? Yes. But I feel like, you know, the right time is now. And so it's, you know, never pressure a man to get married. Oh my God. The reason why I say that is, you know, I've been watching a few, you know, contents before, on the computer a few times where, on the internet a few times where I've seen women, you know, pushing to ask a man to get married. And, you know, I would normally laugh, you know, but at the same time, you know, it makes you feel some type of way as a man because at the end of the day, you know, men are normally the one that you would say would step up to the plate when it comes to that aspect. And so because we are now living in a time where men have dropped the ball when it comes to, you know, really stepping up and being who God has created you to be. You know, now women have to take up that mantle. And so because of that, women are trying to play that role in the best way that they can. And I promise you, a woman can only try. She can only try, but at the end of the day, if there's not that balance, you will not have that steady foundation when it comes to a man and a woman getting married and joining together and moving forward. And so, I would look at it and I would say, wow, this is really something that is going on, and it begins to take that place when it comes to how a man should function in society. And I believe a lot of persons might say, there's nothing wrong with that. If a woman wants to go down on one knee and say, hey, get, will you marry me? There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, I am reminded, by the scripture comes from Proverbs 18, verse 22, which says, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing, and obtains favor, from God, and another scripture that comes to mind is Genesis 2, verse 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be called one flesh. So it shows you that, from creation, men are normally the one that, would pursue a woman, pursue a woman, pursue a woman. A man will leave his parents' house and go find his wife. The first, when God created Adam, and Eve was created after, and that was the first time he prophesied. You get what I'm saying? When he spoke about you know uh when he said, woman, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, and for this cause shall a man leave. So it gives you that understanding that you as a man, or us as a man, we have to step into that place. You and hi Nila, we have to step in that place where, we are not allowing our women to, to take over that role when it comes to saying, hey, will you be my wife? Whichever way you will do it. We can't allow the women to take that place, because it puts us in that place where it's pretty much we're stepping out of, you don't want to say masculine trait, but at the same time, leadership. We're stepping away from that leadership post where we're saying, listen, I want to make that step. I want to take you on as my wife and, to move forward, in this thing called union. So I just want to say, just to step into the dangers of a woman. And I don't want to say forcing a man. It's really pressuring a man to get married. And we see it in the church subtly. We see it in the church subtly, and a lot of person might say, I'll never force a man to, to marry me and all that type of stuff. But I have heard, situations where, a woman will go out, she will leave her place of worship, and she will try to find, maybe go to a different place of worship where she will say a lot of men are, and this is what it is. Or she will bring another man into the church. You understand? She will bring another man. When I talk about bring, meaning that, she might see a guy that out there in the, in the world, and, living his life, and she will, pursue that man by, inviting him to church, and, hoping that he comes in and, serve the Lord and all that type of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I can say the danger in that aspect is that that man might not get the full opportunity to really mellow in God, as I will put it. That man might not get that full opportunity where he's seeking God for himself. He's building that relationship with God for himself, that God can lead and direct his path. So while you, as a woman, you might not push to say, yo, I want, marry to me, marry to me, marry to me. There's that mindset, or that thing in your mind that, okay, I bring this person in the church, so hopefully, or I am the one that is in line for that person to get married. But at the same time, God might be saying, listen, that's not the person. You're not the person. You get what I'm saying, guys? You might not be the person. And so you might leave disappointed, you might feel some type of way. You might get to a place where you're nitpicking at the fact that, hey, what's going on? What's going on? Are we gonna get married and all that type of stuff? And that could be a problem. Because we have to understand that a man knows when he's ready to commit. A man knows when he's ready to commit. Don't let all little brain fool you. A man knows when he's ready to commit. But one of the worst things is to pressure that man into commitment when he's not ready to commit. You get what I'm saying, guys? Oh, it's pressuring that man in that place of commitment when he's not ready to commit. He's not gotten a chance to unload, and I always talk about unbecome. He's not gotten to that place where, and especially if that person is outside, meaning that he's not yet committed himself to the Lord, and you bringing him, he's not really gotten that time to unload his belief system. He's not gotten a chance to unload the certain mindset when it comes to what marriage is, the sacrificial aspect, the loyalty aspect. If he's a person that is normally, before he becomes a Christian, let's say you bring him in the church, before he becomes a Christian, he doesn't know what it is like to be with one woman. You understand what I'm saying, guys? He does not know what it is like to be with one person, to commit to one person. And so in your mind, oh, this is the one for me. I'm bringing him in the church, and this is the one for me. But at the end of the day, he's not at that place where he has fully gotten to that place where he has connected to God. We're talking about deliverance. You understand what I'm saying? Soul ties that he might attach himself to while being out there. The ideologies of being in a we always talk about his community. How he views marriage, how he views family, how he views having one partner. He still has a certain ideology, he still has a certain mindset. So did you give him that moment or that opportunity to unbecome, to shed those ideologies and to take on a new a new mindset of what marriage looks like, what family looks like? You understand what it is like as a man to stand in the gap for your family, to stand in the gap for your wife, to be respectful. You understand what I'm saying, guys? To be that person is not yet fully developed. And so as a woman, you have to be careful how you navigate in that situation. And before I go any further, I just want to add this, especially from a woman, a woman's mindset and a man's mindset when it comes to relationship and marriage. A woman's mindset when it comes to relationship, right, is the idea of what a relationship, or idea of what a relationship or a marriage is, right? She wants to get in it with that idea of what it should be and what it looks like. But the problem with that is that when her idea becomes an idol, for a man, his idea of relationship or you would say marriage at first, or marriage, I don't say marriage, but let's say relationship, is sex. So no matter how we want to twist it and turn it and pretty it up, a man's mindset when he meets a person is like, listen, I need to get in, have some good sex, and whatever happens after that. But a woman's mindset is commitment. A woman's mindset is a level of stability. This man staying with me, and we're gonna make life together, and then we're gonna get married and this and that. That's the pinnacle of what she wants. You understand? But for a man, is jump in and have some good sex, and whatever comes after just comes after. He might not even looking at a long-term commitment. And so her idea is now idolized that no matter what, she's just sitting down waiting for that moment when he's going to say, listen, I do. I feel some type of way for those, especially that are in common law relationships, that you're with that person for umpteen years, hoping that one day what you have idolized the most of saying, listen, this man is going to take me on as his wife. I feel some type of way for those women. I promise you. Because again, if that man is not, I'm talking about that the revelation of who God is, and the revelation of what marriage is, you're going to be stuck in something that forever you're just going to be there. No commitment is just common law. You know, we talk about, you know, shacking up, a woman just living with a man and for years and years and years and years. We all know what that is. No commitment. Because he has not gotten the revelation of who God is. He's not gotten the revelation of what marriage is and what it should be, and what it should produce. So for him, it's not a big deal. Especially if that woman decides to get saved. If that woman says, listen, I want to follow the Lord. You know, the Bible talks about, the wife, the sanctified wife sanctifies the unbeliever, unbelieving spouse. But at the same time, there is no boundary in that marriage. You understand? When you talk about both parties coming together and winning souls and, doing things for the Lord and this and that, while the wife, her mindset might be down that line because she has now gotten saved and all that. The husband is all over the place because he doesn't see the importance of marriage. He doesn't see, the reason God gave us marriage. And so it's no big deal for him. You understand, guys? So again, I'm on the topic of a woman tonight, just talking to the women, for them to understand the mind of a man and the whole idea of marriage and why it is dangerous, to pressure a man into marriage, because again, if that man does not get or have or understand what marriage is, the revelation of marriage or the revelation of who God is, he will not see the importance of that commitment. Period. He will not see the importance of that commitment. You understand? You might have a little dot over there when you're talking about infidelity, you're talking about this, you're talking about anything can creep in because the revelation is not there. The boundary, the spiritual boundary is not there. We're talking about praying together. We're talking about the different problems that might come in our marriage. We're not spiritually there. He's not spiritually there. He's just wandering around. And so as a woman, you have to be fighting that battle by yourself. You have to be navigating the household by yourself. So until that man gets to that place, and again, I always say this, marriage, I believe God gave the children of his children marriage. I talk about the children of God marriage. Because at the end of the day, anything that you do outside of Christ, meaning say God is not in the center of it. You can get married, man. But if he's not in the center of that marriage, meaning say both persons put him in the center of that marriage, you're going to have problems. There's going to be two persons with a ring that said go and spend all the money and said I do. But that would just be it. There's nothing that, is nothing happening where you say progression. And when I say progression, I'm not talking about just making money or, buy a house and all that type. I'm talking about spiritually. Because all of that is, we're going to leave all of that. But at the end of the day, it's our soul that counts. Me and my wife, we can buy 10 houses and we can have 10 cars and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's only what is done for Christ will last. Only what is done for Christ will last. If you're not doing any spiritual work, we're talking about winning souls for Christ. We're talking about going out and professing the name of Jesus. I always talk about that. You understand? We're talking about it, doing the things of God that is building the kingdom of God. Your marriage is not activated as yet. Plain and straight. Your marriage and why God gave us marriage is not activated as yet. We're just two people. You know, we go into our CID, put on the ring, and we're just floating around. There's no spiritual boundaries. There's nothing that says, because again, we always say marriage is our first ministry. Marriage to the child of God is our first ministry. It is our first ministry. So how we operate in this speaks about how we move forward in the things of God outside of our home. Because we're not just going to be Christians in our home. We can't hide our light under a bushel. We have to let our light shine. So who are you? You get what I'm saying, guys? So it is important to understand. It's important to understand why God gave us marriage. The reason for marriage. And as I pointed down to the man aspect, if that man is not connected to that source, we're talking about connected to the source, Jesus Christ. We're talking about his mindset when it comes to commitment. We're talking about his mindset when it comes to doing the things of God. He's not going to be in that for a long time. So pressuring that man to get married, whether it's subtle, doing it in a subtle way. Again, we're talking about our sisters in Christ. You bring in the man, or you're courting that you're talking to that person and all that type of stuff, and you're the main one hinting, doing that or whatever it is. If that man is not there mentally, meaning say he's not grown mentally, spiritually, emotionally, if he's not there when it comes to the work of the Lord, we always talk about that. If he's not moving in a direction where it's not again, as I said, it's not about the sex. Because you can know when it's about the sex. I promise you can know. You set boundaries from now till the morning, and that man will do everything to break down that boundary. You can know what time it is. You can know what time it is. You build up all the boundaries that you can, and that man will break down all the boundaries that you have set up. Because he wants to do it. He wants to have sex. He wants to get to that place where intimacy is the order of the day. You can know where that man's mindset is. You understand, guys? So let us dive in. I have a few things that I wanted to add to the list when I talk about it. The dangers. Lack of genuine commitment. When you're getting into a marriage, both parties have to be at a place where we talk about agreeing to committing to this long term. Both parties have to agree. When it comes to commitment, you have to understand what commitment is. And both parties have to agree. If that's not the case, if it's one person pushing the narrative, and it's normally, again, it's always the female, want to get married, when you're going to marry to me, when you're going to do this, when you're going to do that, hinting and doing all that extra stuff. It's not going to work because it's only one person pushing. And I guarantee you have a lot of females that have gotten into marriages where at the end of the day, they saw the red flags. When I talk about the red flags, meaning that the person was not really pushing when it comes to commitment. They weren't pushing to say, listen, I want this. I want to, to start something where we can move from point A to point B. And I'm not talking about this relation. I'm talking about I'm talking about marriage. We're talking about building things together, moving forward. Is only one person. And so we have to realize that commitment It's not a one-sided thing. Both parties have to agree. Both parties have to be in unison when it comes to moving forward. Commitment. We're talking about no matter what comes our way, we're gonna fight, we're gonna push. And I get it. Sometimes we agree for whatever the reason is. But at the same time, when the problems come, when you say I do and the problems come, you're saying this is too much. This is too much. And I guarantee you guys, I've been there, you know. I've been there, was ready and, you know, I seemed pumped and ready to get into this and I want this and I want to get married. And when the problems came, when it came to that point where my expectations were not met, you know, when there are things that I was hoping, when we're talking about we're talking about, you know, being a certain way, you know, whether it's when it comes to the sex, when it comes to the affection, you know, when it comes to, you know, my love language being stroked, when you're talking about intimate conversations, and then you meet somebody that is just a totally different person. What do you do then? What do you do then in that moment when the person is just not, you know, is not what you expected? Because you were used to this, you were used to a certain life. And so I always say, you know, to especially to a woman or a man, that never rush into marriage without knowing yourself. Never rush into that commitment without knowing yourself. When I talk about knowing yourself, I mean understanding yourself, especially when you know you get to that place where you give your life to the Lord. That is so important. Self-reflection. You have to reflect. You have to go back in your mind, in your thoughts. You have to constant, you know, reflecting. You have some ways that you need to drop. You have some things that you were so used to that you cannot take into marriage. You just cannot take those things into marriage. And so no, you have to drop those things. You have to work on those things when it comes to getting those things off you. A lot of times we talk about, and as I said, it's so important. Deliverance is so important, guys. Deliverance is so important. Deliverance is so important. There are a lot of spiritual things that you might have taken on before marriage, that if you're not careful, if you jump into that prematurely without doing the spiritual work, there's going to be problems. There are going to be problems. I promise you, there are going to be problems. I remember when you know, in my relationship, when, you know, me and my wife used to have a lot of issues. We always cuss because we really didn't know what was going on in the background. She was going through her trauma. I was going through my personal things, you know, whether from the past or whatever it is. Couldn't understand, you know, why she was behaving a certain type of way, not realizing, you know, it was based on her, you know, dad leaving, and, you know, it really affected her. And so all of that was brought into marriage. And I promise you, before we got married, you know, we're happy. You know, we bouncing for joy. Everything was just perfect. Did I see certain things? Yes. But at the same time, you know, we're Christian people. You know, we can't hug and do all the extra stuff that, you know, persons outside would be doing. And so the dynamic of you know, we're talking about, you know, showing our love language and hugging and doing all that type of stuff, and you know, being affectionate, not the sexual aspect, but, you know, how we communicate in that light, touchy feely hugs and all that type of stuff, where you know, we have to put that aside. And so when you get into marriage and now you're saying, okay, I need this, you know, I need to feel this way, I need to that extra stuff. And then you realize, okay, you know, this person is just not that type of person. And that for me was big because I was getting that before. I wanted that, you know, I desired that. That was the thing that, you know, part of it that kept me going. But at the same time, it wasn't, that person was just not that type of person. What do you do then? That side of me now start creeping in, because I am now thinking back on, my little moments of, the person that I met in the past, and how they were this way and how they were that way. That was constantly, coming up. And then she would say to me, hey, if you don't like this, why you don't leave? Why you don't leave? Why you don't leave? And that was something that was, was just constantly said. And I said to her, I should be the one that should say I want to leave, because you're not giving me what I want. You're not giving me what I desire. You understand? And I started to entertain. That whole aspect. I started to think about it. Really and truly, why should I be here stressing about somebody, that is just not connecting with me in a certain light? Why not, go back to that? Talking about marriage, early part of marriage. I think it was like our first 2 years. Go back to what you're used to. And in the trauma world, we call it home. What is familiar, what we're used to. Home, we want to feel safe. Sometimes that home is toxic. Sometimes that home is not conducive to our growth, whether it is spiritually, whether it's mentally, whether it's emotionally. It's not conducive. But at the same time, it gives us a sense of peace. And so I wanted to, quote unquote, feel again. You understand? I wanted to, quote unquote, feel again. But, to the grace of God, I have to give God thanks. It never went that far. But I want to say again, that is something that if you're not delivered, that is something that if you're not transformed, renewed mentally, it will come up, because marriage comes with a lot. It's something, it's beautiful, but it comes with a lot. And so if you're not spiritually inclined, if you're not emotionally mature, spiritually mature, mentally mature, the things that comes with marriage, the things that comes when you're not getting what you desire, if you're not there, especially spiritually, you're going to fall back. Because you will not meet a perfect person. I promise you, you will not meet a perfect person. Females, you will not meet a perfect person. Males, you will not meet a perfect person. It's being selfless every single day. It's deciding to choose that person every single day, regardless. It's choosing that person every single day. So the second one is the unstable foundation. The unstable foundation of a man. You can't force a man to get married, because, again, that man might have a lot of ideologies. When you talk about an unstable foundation, is mindset. It's mindset. If you should sit down with a man and ask him, just tell him, listen, the person that you meet, and you say, tell me about your growing up. And if he's honest, and he starts to blurt it out, he starts to tell you about, his community, starting to tell you about his family dynamic, he's starting to tell you about the things that he had to go through to get from point A to point B. And I'm talking about grow up as a man. The things that he has seen. How do you now expect that man to create a foundation that is stable for you? It's not going to be easy. No. How do you expect that man to create, even if him decide to follow the Lord, get saved, and he decides to follow the Lord? I promise you, again, to talk about unbecoming. His mind has to be renewed. His heart posture has to be renewed. Everything about that man has to be renewed. So the thinking, when it comes to growth, when it comes to stability, you know, whether it is finances, whether it is safety, whether emotionally, he has to know how to regulate emotionally. Because he's gonna tell you, oh, you know, me, so you have to jump over that, and me, oh, you some shut up this, and you know, he has all kind of story to tell you. You're growing up here is rough, and so you want a man, the looks, you know, he looks good, you know, smell nice, but at the same time, you want that man to regulate you emotionally. You want to regulate him emotionally. You want to be able to have conversations that is uplifting, to have conversation that speaks on growth, and we're talking about just being at a place that feels like home. But for him, that might not be. He might be triggered by that. So what does his foundation looks like? And I'm not talking about his foundation. If he has a house, no, that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what does safety looks like for him. What are his expectations when it comes to marriage? What does he view marriage as? You know, what is marriage to him? What is his relationship with God is like? What does that look like? So there's so many things that you have to contend with when it comes to a person, a man, meeting a man, courting that person, and truly not knowing who you're courting. Because what you have gotten is a surface level of that person. The quote unquote the best version, a script that was read, and he's now giving you that script, and he will give another person that script, and he will give another person that script. And I'm not saying that he's a bad person, but at the same time, he wants to fit in. He wants to feel like, okay, I can be this person, or I think I have the capacity to do this. And so you're getting that script. Another person is getting that script. Oh, my name is this, and this is me, and this is what I love to do that, and it just seems perfect. But at the same time, when the rubber hits the road, you're starting to see a whole different person. A side of him that he himself does not have control of, because his emotions are going all over the place. When he's stressed, how does he handle stress? How does he deal with stress? A lot of persons find out how their partner deal with stress when they get married. And it is so hard because in Christendom, in our Christian world, in our church life, in how we deal with, marriage, people getting married, you really don't have enough time where you truly know a person. You don't have that enough time, because persons are just, you get in, you see a person you like, and boom, we get married. We court for 6 months and get married. So, but you truly don't know who you're taking on. Because one thing I can definitely tell you, when you are, let's say you're keeping yourself, and I promise you, you're keeping yourself, and you want the moments when you feel like, oh, I need to be intimate, I need to have sex, I need to do this. The emotions are running wild, and you're just operating off that frequency. Everything looks beautiful. The person can't do no wrong. God's gift. Everything seems beautiful, but once you get to that I do, and we get there, and that happens, and it's like your eyes become open. Your eyes become open. And that's what happens to a lot of relationship, because that foundation was not built on something genuine. We talk about genuine love, meaning that selfless. We're talking about respecting person's boundaries. Like, It's not about the sex. It's really, you know, knowing this person and doing life with this person comes what may type of thing. It was not that. It was just built off the sexual drive, the sexual motivation. And so when you get there and you do that for the first 6 months of the marriage, and you know you do that, and now you get used to the person, that dopamine run out. You need to get that high again. A lot of men know we need the high, we need the next high. Everything should do seem like a problem. They need the next high. They need to get to that next person that gives them that same dopamine level. Everything seems like a problem. Who are you? You know, who is this girl? Who is this woman? And so you have to be careful when you're navigating in that journey. Females, you have to be, women, you have to be careful how, especially in this time, we talk about take your time to navigate. A lot of times we talk about how a person falls in love with what seems familiar. A person falls in love with what seems familiar. And so if there's things that's inside of you that you need, that you feel like you're lacking, women, you know, sometimes it can be just how your upbringing, your parents weren't showing you enough love, you know, the things that you go to that makes you feel like you're not worth enough, you know, all that type of stuff, the lack of self-love. And so whoever you meet, you try to fit them into that box, right? You try to fit that person into that box of what you really desire. You fit that person into that box because you desire this and you want this and whatever it is. And even when it is there in front of you that, listen, this man is not the person. You try to fit that person in that narrative. And so what your idea of love is, and what your idea of stability is, and what your idea of, you know, just home, it becomes an idol. And so there's no wrong in that situation until you get there. Until that person plays along with it and said, yes, let's do this. And then you start realizing, okay, so that's the next danger, you know, the unstable foundation. The next one is personal growth. Is that person that you're you know, talking to? You can't pressure a man to get married, because at the end of the day, he might be somebody that when it comes to personal growth, he's not there. Personal growth is not there. He's just not growing. He's not growing spiritually. He's not growing financially. He's not growing mentally, emotionally, every alley that you can think about. This person is just not growing. He's not growing. Because what marriage does, it stretches you. I can't stress this enough. Marriage, it stretches you. And so if you're a person that is not there when it comes to growth, oh, I don't want to grow, I don't want to change, I don't want to evolve, marriage is not for you. Because it forces you to grow. Marriage, it forces you to grow. There's nobody that's in a marriage, and I understand, and I promise you, you know, you might be somebody that's on the same level when it comes to financially. You get into marriage and you're there because you don't want to grow, because you haven't stepped out of that comfort zone that you're used to. You have not stepped out of that comfort zone to try different things. You have not stepped out of that comfort zone where your brain is now thinking outside to say, okay, how can I navigate and do this so I can bring in extra income? How can I navigate and do this? Might seem uncomfortable. It might seem uncomfortable. But because you're used to comfort, because you're used to, it can be a woman working, you used to have these women that take care of you and then flood you with this. You understand? You're just used, a man is just used to that. He's just used to that. And so when he gets in a marriage with you, he's expecting the same treatment. You go work and provide for him. You're the one that is brainstorming this, you're the one that is doing this, you're the one that is doing that. And he's just chilling. He's just chilling. No growth, no business idea, nothing that you can come and say, listen, babe, let us try this, babe, let us, invest in this. Nothing. So that is one of the biggest red flags when it comes to you cannot, because again, marriage, it forces you to grow. It forces you to evolve. It forces you to change. And I understand you have a lot of person. I want to be myself and want to be this and want to be that. When I said forces you to grow and forces you to change, is that while you might be comfortable being yourself, if you're a jovial person, if you're this, it is fine. But at the same time, there might be things that you quote unquote being yourself that is not conducive to the marriage. You understand? There might be things that you feel like, okay, this is just me, but it's not conducive to the marriage. It's not conducive to the growth of a marriage. It's not conducive when it comes to building that connection with your partner. Are you willing to compromise? Are you willing to step back and say, listen, over the years, this has been me, but at the same time, I see where it's affecting my partner. I see where it is just not helping the dynamic of our relationship. Am I willing to evolve? Am I willing to meet that person halfway? Am I willing to be selfless? As a man, am I willing to be selfless? Am I willing to be that person that's going to step back and say, listen, maturity says this is how we connect. Maturity. You have to be willing to evolve. You have to be willing to, quote unquote, change, because that's what comes with marriage, especially as men. You say I heard somebody say one of the biggest thing when it comes to a man, being a leader in the house, is one of the things that he eats last. And it's way deeper than really what you think. You hear that and you say, okay, he eats last, meaning that the food share out and then he eat last. But it's deeper. Meaning that as a man, you have to be at that place. As I mentioned, you have to be selfless. You have to be at that place where you're saying, listen, my family comes first. You have to be at that place where you say, listen, if it's even literally. I've been there where, food, just this amount of food in the house. And I just whip it up and, make sure, say, everybody get them portion. And I'm just there in the pot, just scraping. And I'm good. So if you ever want to take it literally, I'm good. Meaning that at the end of the day, what brings me joy as a man, what brings me that fulfillment as a man, being being fulfilled, is making sure that my family is good. So lady, if that man does not possess that quality or those qualities, is he willing to lay down his life? And again, For those that might be courting and understand you're not gonna spend the whole rest of your life or court somebody for find out all of that. Look at how he treats his family. Look at how he treats his sister. Look at how he treats his mother. Look at how he treats, people on a whole. Does he have a heart, for when it comes to giving, compassionate? You understand what I'm saying? What is his heart posture when it comes to, how he communicates with others, You have to look at these things. So I get it. You might not be able to see a man in his different you know phase of his life. I promise you. But at the same time, again, if you are keen, look at these traits. Look at how he treats his family. Look at how he treats his mother. Look at how he shows up for the things of God. How does serving look like for him? Is he a person that is quick to serve? His ministry, what does that look like outside of talking to you every day and doing all of that? Is his heart posture, there when it comes to ministry, the things of God? Serving, because marriage is about serving. Marriage is about serving. I can't stress it enough. Marriage is about serving. Both persons serving each other. Both parties serving each other. You have to know how to serve. 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 So I'm saying all of this to say, listen, no matter how it looks, no matter, again, we always talk about, you see everything around you, everybody's getting married and, this is going on and that is going on and people is getting this and people is getting that. Do not rush the process. Do not rush the process. Do not rush the process. Never force a man or pressure a man into getting married to you. Never pressure a man to getting married to you as a woman. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane and perfect your art. Stay in your lane and perfect your relationship with God. Stay in your lane and understand who you are. Stay in the lane and search yourself when it comes to internal things that you might be dealing with, because I promise you guys, that can be the place where you're seeking love from. That can be the place that you're seeking that fulfillment from. And that can be a dangerous place. That can be a dangerous place. Well, yes, yeah. That's also something, a man that is pressuring a woman. Again, if that person is pressuring you for marriage, right? If that person is pressuring you for marriage, one, you have to get an understanding of why is he pushing for that. Don't be afraid to ask the question, why are you pushing to get married? There's nothing wrong with that. I believe once you set that precedence where that person is now looking at you like, because as I said, a woman's desire is to get married, no matter what, from she young, the Dolly and, Ken and Barbie and getting married and running off in the sunset. And so that is there. And so for a man, especially if him, him in his own zone and he's getting a vibe like, oh, you like him, he's expecting you to jump and say yes. But once you set the precedence where he realizes that you're not a yes woman, you're not a person that it frightened, quote unquote, marriage frightening you want to put on a ring and do all of that. it gives him that opportunity to look in himself and to level up. Meaning that whatever the motives are, his response to you when you ask him these questions, it has to come from a place where you can look and say, listen, substance, right? And again, he's pressuring you. Are you, is he somebody that, you know, you're really feeling? Is he somebody that you really like? If so, there's nothing wrong with you riding that process out. Meaning that you're looking at how again, you know, the different attributes, like his relationship with God, his service. I always say this, especially when it comes to a woman, you have to know how to serve. Serve meaning that your relationship with God, doing the things of God. Because when you get into marriage, it can either continue or it can either stop. And a lot of times that can stop because if the man start behave a certain type of way. Meaning that you can't focus on the things of God anymore. You have to focus on praying for this man because he's constantly doing this. He's constantly running the streets. He's constantly this. He's constantly that. So you cannot really grow in your marriage. And you don't want to be doing that like a single person now because you know take on a husband. So whatever the work that you're doing is both of you doing that together. You don't want to do something and you feel like you're still single. Because again, guys, marriage is not just to get married. Marriage is not just to put on the ring, and a lot, especially women, that's the pinnacle. That's when once they get that, it's like a reach. Everything can just drop boof now. But that's not it. I adore him, but I am against marriage due to all the toxic relationship I have seen as a child. Wow. Wow. And I do understand that. I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I feel like a lot of persons do go through that process where, you know, they're afraid to be vulnerable. You know, you're afraid to give in to this, and he could be a cool dude. You know, he could be a nice guy, but you know, as you mentioned, it's really just opening up and say, listen, you know, I'm willing to step into this type of this thing, you know. And so now you have to do that work. That's on you now to do that inner work. You know, it's on you to do that inner work, because what is going to happen if you don't do that inner work is that you're going to self-sabotage that relationship. You're going to self-sabotage, you know. It could be somebody that is really there, you know, to move forward. But because trust issues, because of the toxicity that you have dealt with, you might end up self-sabotaging that relationship. You get what I'm saying? So you have to do that inner work. You know, you have to do that that inner work. You know, you have to do that inner work where you're able to deal with that, because you know it can be traumatic. It can be traumatic. And if you are going to say yes to somebody, but at the same time you have trust issues, that marriage will not work. Because what's going to happen is that man is going to spend eternity, trying to prove to you that, hey, you know, I am the it. Sorry, I am the one. You know, I am the one for you. But it's not going to register. It's not going to register. You're going to always wonder if, always wonder that. And again, you might end up self-sabotaging, and then you might feel good about it. Oh, I dodged a bullet. You know, I dodged a bullet, because that has become your safe space. You understand? But it really wasn't that. It wasn't that. So you have to do that self work. You know, you have to do that self work where you're able to regulate. You're able to trust. You understand? You're able to let your guard down where you can feel like, okay, this has potential. Yes, you have to. Yeah, you have to. You have to let your guard down. You have to get to that place where you can just be open. Vulnerability is not going to come overnight, but it's just being open to receive. What could be something of great possibility. So yeah, you have to be able to do that work. Lovely. You understand, guys? But it's real. It's real. It's real. It's something that is real. It's real out there. It's real. A lot of persons really are afraid to commit. And again, as I said, um, the idea of marriage, the idea of relationship coming from a woman, and that idea is really stemmed from what you have dealt with, your past experiences, whether it's from your parents, whether it's from relationships in the past. You understand? And so you have a desire. You want to feel love. You want to feel appreciated. You want to feel this. You want to feel that. And so you try to fit that man into that box. Even when it's staring in your face that, listen, this is not it. You try to fit to fit your ideal person that they can give you what you want. You understand? So you have to be careful. You have to be careful. You can't choose healthy if you're not healthy. Women, you can't choose healthy if you're not healthy. If you're not healed, if you're not, if you have not dealt with these inner, whether it's traumas, whether it's imprints, whatever it is, if you have not dealt with that, you cannot see through a lens that is um that is healthy. You can't do that. You can't do that. If you're not, if inside, if you're not healthy inside, you're not able, and I'm talking about emotionally, like, you're not able to choose from a healthy place. So you'll always attract the same person over and over and over and over and over and over. You get what I'm saying, guys? You'll always attract the same person. You will always attract the same men. You'll always attract the same men. And sometimes you will not see, you might feel like, oh, I attract somebody else, but you will not see that it's the same person until, it gets there. You might not see it right off the bat, but you get into the relationship and you keep going and do whatever it is, then you start to see, okay, it's the same person. It's the same person. Yeah, so that's, I think that's it. I think that's it. I think that's it. Yes, guys. So again, as the topic says, don't ever pressure a man, and it's vice versa. Men don't pressure a woman to get married, and women don't pressure that person to get a male to get married, because it can be detrimental. Allow that person to grow. If it's somebody that you have, you see potential in, allow that person to grow. Allow that person to develop that relationship with God. And I have to put that in the book, because again, and I don't want to sound like a scratch record, a man without Christ is like a ship without a sail. And I have to say man, because God gave us that direction when it comes to being the man of the house, meaning to be the leader, the director of our family. Christ is the head of the man after, then you have the woman, then you have the children, right? So if that man don't have a leader, if God if God himself is not the leader and the director of that man's life, we're gonna floating on a ship without a sail. What do you think about overseas relationship? All right, for me personally, when it comes to long distance relationship, I understand how stressful that can be. I definitely understand how stressful that can be. Um, for some persons, it might not be ideal, because again, they want that person in their space where they're able to, to grow together, to navigate together. You understand? You're not able to see that person for a long period of time. You know, you're wandering, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. And so it can be frustrating. I think for a person that is doing an overseas relationship, there has to be a point where you're sorting something out to be together. I am not going to be the one to quick and say, yo, cut off the person because this and that and whatever, whatever. It's what your capacity can deal with, right? But at the same time, while that person is there and you're there has to be something that says, listen, we're working towards this. Meaning say being together, like being in the same space. You understand? Yes, being in the same space, because again, you can only deal with something for so long. Humanly, we need that closeness. Humanly, we need that closeness. You know, not everybody is comfortable talking to a person through the phone, through the phone, through the phone, through the phone. You need that that closeness, and so it has to be something where you're agreeing to say, listen, that if it's 1 year, whatever, or 2 year, whatever your capacity can deal with, and then you navigate from there. But I promise you, I have seen persons do it, and at some point they had to say, you know, goodbye because one, they I believe they truly love each other, but at the same time, one was not able to be in the other's space. You understand what I'm saying? And so they had to be like, you know what? Let's date persons that are in our proximity, so we can navigate better. So it's whatever your capacity can do, but at the same time, I believe there should be a level of understanding that, listen, how long are we going to keep this stuff up? You get what I'm saying? How long are we going to navigate in this way before we get to that place where, you know, we can be in the same space? I think that is really the best way forward. I think that's the best way forward. I think that's the best way forward. So guys, I do appreciate you guys coming out. I do appreciate you guys coming out. You know, hopefully my wife will be here on the next, I think, where we are today, on Monday, Thursday. So I thank you. You're welcome, lovely. You're welcome. So hopefully you guys will be out with us on Thursday, where we be out. I want to say the topic for that. We'll see you guys on Thursday, guys. Blessings to you all. Thank you for showing up. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.